please introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, my name is Tisbe. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a senior studying the comparative history of ideas with a minor in environmental studies. Is there anything else I should say about myself?
How's your final year going? Is it your final year?
I'm actually staying an extra year, so
Okay.
not quite my final year, but it's going really well. Finally feeling like I'm settling in after COVID and kind of not really being in school. Finally, like, settling into extracurriculars and classes. It's been nice.
That's good. And how are you making the most out of your college experience in person?
Yeah, I love that question. I think a lot of it is seeking out more resources. I really enjoy office hours, in-person advising, in-person club activities. So just trying to be on campus as much as possible and to be as little online as possible, I think, has been my main way of settling in.
And how do you think that's improved your mental health?
Ooh, so much. I feel like part of it is even just having access to like going outside and moving around. Movement is very helpful for me with mental health. And so that's been really helpful, just getting myself outside. But then also Zoom just like doesn't work for my brain. And I think that's a common sentiment, but I can't pay attention for that long. It's super, super draining. And so having the stimulation of being in class, having other sounds and sights, and being able to wander a bit more has been so helpful as well.
Okay. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
We did want to talk about mental health, so let's stay on that topic.
Okay, lovely.
What's one thing you've been thinking about? I know you had interest in talking about gender in relation to mental health. Would you like to expand on that on a broader level to start this off?
Yeah. I think gender and mental health are super, super related. I think there's a huge correlation between, as an overstatement, I suppose, genderqueer people and people who are mentally ill. It feels, in my personal experience, like I see a lot of overlap there. And I think part of that is questioning your gender or feeling different in your body requires a lot of looking inward, and I think creates more discordance. And I've thought a lot about the kind of chicken egg thing of, does questioning your gender or not feeling like you are the gender that you were assigned at birth, does that lead to mental health issues? Or do mental health issues make you more likely to question how you present? If that makes any sense.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me because I'm trans.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I feel like... Well, first, I want to ask a question that's a bit more direct. Have you heard of the book that was released last year called Unmasking Autism?
No, I haven't.
So it's written by a sociologist, I don't know his name, unfortunately, who's trans mask, and his theory / observations is that there is generally a correlation between a varying gender identities outside the binary and some form of neurodivergency.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And, you know, in order to become more comfortable with yourself and just general, I don't know, happiness and joy of your everyday life, you just kind of have to accept that, like, you fall within this neurodivergent kind of pathway, which isn't a bad thing. Because, I mean, if you look at the criteria for, like, autism or ADHD or something, like, it's pretty broad.
Yeah.
For the most part. And, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm generally a proponent for a self-diagnosis because it's right there. And it's a spectrum, like everything is. So, saying that, I guess, have you thought about how your own gender identity can be attributed to some sort of neurodivergency?
Absolutely. So I am neurodivergent. I have ADHD and bipolar, both of which I think really change the lens through which you see the world. And I think that has a lot tied to my gender identity. I think it creates a lot more free-form thinking, and I see and think and hear a lot more in the abstract. it's really hard for me to memorize or think specifically, but thinking critically and broadly comes very naturally. And I think that relates to seeing myself as operating very differently in the world. And I feel like since a young age, I haven't been focused on gender as much. And I think I've always been able to pass very well as like completely cis, completely female presenting, completely straight. And I think I would have just gone with that if I weren't neurodivergent and if I weren't questioning the world so much around me and figuring out, like, why don't I feel comfortable in a feminine body? Like, why do I hate when people use she instead of they? Like, where does that discordance come from? And I think a lot of what allowed me to question and address those discordances was from already thinking differently about things.
Okay. I have very similar experiences, I would say. And I guess something I've come to accept is medical terms are kind of useless at the end of the day, since I feel like for the most part, well, one, they're probably historically founded on some pretty shitty things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and two, I think it is used as a disadvantage towards people to be like, I am better than you on a very statistical and medical level, which is something I feel because I kind of can't hide my own changing a body since I'm on hormones and all that. And I kind of feel that from like therapists and psychiatrists. It's like I kind of feel like I'm not viewed entirely as a human. I actually talked to another trans person within CHID students who said something that I really vibed with. He said, it feels like people kind of demote you to a subhuman. Like generally within the same category of the same species, but a lesser in a lot of ways, just kind of demeaning. And I do 100% feel that a lot of the time. And I mean, you could just feel it, right? I'm sure you had those experiences being neurodivergent as well, right?
Yeah, I think I carry a lot of privilege in my body of a lot of my like my neurodivergencies and my gender presentation are kind of hidden.
Okay.
So I think that decreases the level to which I feel like people are treating me subhuman. But I definitely think that there's just not space for neurodivergent brains. And a lot of having to mask how you might act or what you might talk about because it's not comfortable for non-neurodivergent brains.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting. But as far as like in a therapeutic or a psychiatric setting, I feel that I have enough like intersectional identities that carry a lot of privilege that am not like treated in that same capacity, I think.
100%. Yeah, a lot of it, at least for me, I assume has to do with race and ethnicity.
Exactly.
Which is unfortunate, as well as a lot of other things that maybe we could go into later. But let's turn this into a positive at the moment.
Okay.
How do you express your own identity, whether that's gender or neurodivergent based or etc., in a creative fashion? Because I know you like dancing.
Yes.
Do you think that through that you're able to express your identity in a more abstract, sure, but in another way, concrete way?
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a huge journey for me coming into college of being in a space where I feel like the UW, I came from a very, very rigid community where if you weren't meeting certain social expectations, you were ostracized. But coming to the UW, I feel like maybe this is just the circles I've ended up in with, CHID and pretty creative and radical extracurriculars. But I feel like there's a lot more celebration of being kind of odd, I guess. So first of all, really, really tuning in to creative outlets. I dance every quarter exactly because of what you said. It allows me to kind of allow my brain to sink into my body and completely let go of very, very crowded, busy thoughts and just kind of like be. And mind-body connection is incredibly important to me. And then also writing. I've picked up writing for the first time in years. I wrote a ton when I was a kid, like creative writing, and then I kind of got out of it. And then being in college, I've really like gotten back into it. And then also, I think most importantly is embracing being weird on a day-to-day level. So like trying to mask less of like, I have like a lot of physical anxiety of like, it's really important for me to be like running around or like jumping up and down or like doing movements that are somewhat disruptive to the normal flow, or like making weird noises, just being like more true to myself, embracing my inner child a lot more, and that's been really, really helpful.
Damn, I'm resonating with you. Mm-hmm. Something I do whenever I have people over at my place is I have like a section of my living room that is just activities that you could do. So I have a bunch of instruments, I have pillows, I have stress balls because people like to play with them, and I have drawing stuff. So people have a choice of like, staying occupied while we're doing something else like talking or whatever. And I find like that reduces a lot of stress in general for people. I feel like it should be normalized. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
How would you describe your dancing style?
I would say I'm not good at dancing, but I am very good at being bad.
Okay.
Like I'm not afraid to mess up. And so I would say it's a lot less technically correct, but I'm very artistic with my movements in terms of allowing a lot of flow into my upper body and like facial expressions, really feeling the music. I like to pretend that the music is inside of me and, part of my blood rather than outside of me influencing externally. I like to think of it as like an internal force.
Okay.
So it's not particularly pretty, but it is very freeing.
Okay, let's talk about your internal force.
Okay.
How does that look like? How does that come to be? What's the color of it? Anything you're willing to share from it.
Okay, yeah. So I have multiple internal forces depending on the context. So like in meditation, depending on the type of meditation, it's usually in the form of wind. In this specifically, it's in the form of like, like electric satin is the best way I can think of it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so like I think of it as like the music coming in, starting in my fingertips and toes and like the edges of my body, and then through my blood, pooling into the center of my chest, and then expanding back out and like a flow like that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the most clear way I can describe it.
That is very colorful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Electric satin. That's a nice pair of words.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And does that feeling come through in your writing as well? And how so?
Absolutely. I often feel that I'm not writing. Something other than me is putting ideas in my head and my hand is dictating them. So that same kind of electric satin flows through my body, but this time it's from above, enters my head, and then channels all the way to my hand rather than emanating throughout my entire body. Yeah. My brain is very visual.
You're very symbolist is what I'm getting.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. You should read some Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, I really should. I'll put it on my reading list.
Cool. Okay, I have tons of questions.
Okay.
But you also wanted to talk about a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about wilderness therapy.
Okay,
which makes a lot of sense coming from Los Gatos.
Yeah, it really does. So many people in wilderness therapy are from my hometown. So for context, for those who don't know what it is, wilderness therapy is a therapeutic program that uses the outdoors as a method for healing. It's under the umbrella of the troubled teen industry. And while there are a lot of theoretical benefits, it manifests in very harmful ways. There's a lot of psychic and bodily and colonial violence. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of parents being scared and being manipulated into sending their kid into an oppressive environment that is... I'm trying to think of how to explain this.
Please take your time.
Okay. I lost my train of thought now. Can I restart?
Yeah, I could also ask you another question.
Sure.
How does the wilderness improve your own health, do you think?
Yeah, great question. Wilderness is incredibly imperative for my health. I discovered that on my first backpacking trip. It was the most calm I had ever felt in years, and all of my worries fell away, and I felt so much more artistic than I had in a long time. As far as bipolar goes, like very mood stabilized, which is pretty rare to find.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it's really important for me. There is also, I think it's really important to mention like the privilege I have of being able to access the outdoors, because it's been made so exclusive.
Especially in the U.S.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on the redwoods?
Oh, well, you and I coming from the Santa Cruz area, I love the redwoods.
Of course.
Yeah, very much like maternal, paternal kind of figures for me.
Talk more about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was largely raised in the forest, not as much in the outdoor activity sense, but in just, you know, growing up in that kind of area of California. You're really surrounded by trees. I'm a very, very place-based person. So a lot of my core memories are involved around place. So redwoods and the Northern California landscape in general has become a very grounded place of friendship and family.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of kinship with the beings in the forest. And because redwoods are so old, they're so grand, they feel very like grandmotherly, like that kind of matriarch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that, especially with the concept of Mother Earth as kind of the easy connection. I feel like I'm able to know just when someone's from Northern California by the way they speak. I feel like we both have the same kind of drawl
Yeah.
in our voice and accents, but I feel like with Southern California, I feel like it's a lot more smoother and chilled out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I feel like with me, it's just very aggressive and very like, you know, direct because I come from more or less the desert area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like I have heat inside my body. That's, you know, the desert is very paternal for me.
All right.
Yeah, it's just like it's made to like beat you down.
Yeah,
Which,
interesting.
I feel like it has its own benefits. Yeah, cool. How did you discover that you were a she/they?
That's a really great question. I had always not really identified with femininity, but I hadn't ever really challenged that or allowed myself to give more space for that.
Okay.
But then I was in class one time and someone referred to me as they, and it was like the happiest I had been in a long, like it felt so comforting.
Sure.
And I decided to listen to that. And so I thought on it a lot more, and I kind of expressed my thoughts and feelings around how I felt my gender was, how I might more accurately describe the gender that I felt, with some of my friends, and they started referring to me as they. And then I slowly but surely, I think, became comfortable with the fact that it was okay to not be a she, her. And yeah, so now it's funny, I go by she, they, but I have such a stronger preference for they, but I don't think I'll ever be able to go by they, them, because I don't know. I haven't thought through that yet. I think part of it is that I'm scared to step in a community that I don't know. I'm always very scared of, like, being in a space that I am invading, I guess.
How do you mean?
Like, I think my primary identity is my whiteness because of how much privilege that affords me.
Sure.
And so that extends to other communities where, like, I feel like in any marginalized community, I want to be aware that I'll, like, inherently take up more space through that. Like, does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it sounds like white guilt.
Sure. Perhaps. Maybe I should reflect on that.
Seattle life. What are your perspectives on Seattle?
Yeah, I love Seattle. The only thing I don't like about it is the weather. That always kind of gets me down, but I've realized it's better than a lot of other places' weathers. Yeah, I like it. I find kind of what you were saying about just, I find it very performative.
Yes. Best word.
Yeah. So that's definitely, like, an interesting thing in the community. But it's the first time I've lived in a city, and just infrastructure-wise, I really enjoy public transportation. I love being close to the outdoors. Yeah, so there's a lot that I like about Seattle, a lot to discuss or complicate, but I think in general, I've definitely found community and home in Seattle.
And why'd you choose Seattle? I'm not sure if I asked that before.
So I was choosing between UC Santa Barbara and University of Washington. They're pretty comparable academically, and I didn't have a special area of study, so it wasn't like, this is a really good comp sci program, or really good, like, whatever. So it was a lot more lifestyle-based. UCSB is very similar to Los Gatos. It's very much, like, superficial, like, party culture, like, just a lot more emphasis on, like, looks and outward appearance and performance.
Yeah.
Which is really exhausting. And I just wanted to live in, it's also a small town. UCSB was everything about my home, and UW was everything not like my home to some level. There's definitely, still being on the West Coast, there's, like, still a lot of similarities.
You're in the big city now, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But public transportation, first time I learned how to use public transportation was coming to Seattle, because there's no infrastructure except for, like, the BART, whatever, the Caltrain, and those
it doesn't go over there.
Yeah, exactly. You still have to drive 30 minutes to get to the station, so you're already driving. Like, you might as well drive the next 30 minutes as well. Yeah, so that was kind of, I liked the school spirit. Yeah, I don't know.
What's one thing you're most thankful for about moving up here that makes you feel good?
Oh, that's such a good question. Honestly, I feel like the Chid community. I feel like...
Thank you. You're making my job easy.
I feel like it's really interesting because as a tour guide for the UW, there's so many times where I get a question and I'll be like, I can give you my experience, but I'm telling you this is very different than the general experience of university students. And I feel like it's the core reason why I've been able to kind of, like, even what we were talking about earlier of, like, embracing your inner child. I feel like that was in large part because of Chid. And I feel like it's allowed me to view the world and view myself in much more of a complex and nuanced lens, and that's very calming for me. And I feel like there's so much genuine interest in Chid that I don't really see in other places. yeah, I don't know. I think the philosophies of Chid will carry me for a long time.
Wow, that's some big things to say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna quote that and put it on the website. That's gonna make me look like I'm doing my job. Okay. Let's see. I want to keep doing these big questions. We have been talking for a bit, but we have like a few more minutes.
Sounds good.
Are you cool with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. How do you deal with your time management, and do you think that you could be better at it? And how are you splitting up your time? All of that. Something I like asking people, because there's always something they're like unnegating. Because for me, for example, like in college, focus 100% on my social life. And, you know, unfortunately, didn't really focus on my studies too much. I was a BC student. But I don't know, at least for me, I won't change a thing because I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So for you, how's your life looking currently?
Yeah, I love that question. I try my best to find balance, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I very much think that rest is a form of resistance. I believe that's a book as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, I try really hard to prioritize myself. So what I usually do is I will front load all of the work that I have to do in the beginning of the day, and then usually I almost always have an extracurricular at night. So I'll do that, but they're usually not that intense. They're usually a few hours. And then I will just completely relax and unplug. And I also really prioritize sleep. So if it's 11 a.m. on a school night and like I have more work to do, I'll just like stop it and go to bed.
Good.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important. Another reason why I like Chid, the faculty is behind decolonizing like grades. And so I feel like I have a lot of support in being able to be like, doing this work is actively hindering myself right now, and I need to prioritize other aspects of my life. And I feel like professors are just like, that makes sense. Like, I can see how, you know, sleep or like mental well-being or whatever it is more making enough money to pay your rent, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Might be a more of a priority. Yeah, I also try to either see people or spend time with myself intentionally, depending on how introverted or extroverted I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are your personal relationships going? And that's like a broad question, you know, a familial, professional, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, totally. I feel really comfortable and satisfied in my relationships right now. I feel like I've, throughout college, come to a point where I've determined the people who I like spending time around and determined the people who I think I would be better without, quite honestly.
Okay.
And have been good at enforcing boundaries with that, I guess.
Good.
And so I feel like everyone that I have in my life is actively supportive, both ways. Like, I support them and they support me. Yeah, it's been a nice balance. Like, I don't feel like I feel like I'm interdependent with my like closer relationships and am on very good terms with my larger relationships, or like more distant.
Dang, you sound healthy.
You know, it took me a long time to get here, but I honestly think I'm some of the most healthy I've been ever.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Love it.
It's pretty fun to say. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're gonna wrap up in just a minute, so I'm gonna ask some fun questions.
Okay.
What's on your playlist?
Ooh. Okay, recently the new Labyrinth song, that's name I don't know.
Okay.
But it's really good.
Who are Labyrinth?
Have you ever seen Euphoria?
Okay, yeah.
The soundtrack from Euphoria is Labyrinth.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's the same vibe, like just like really crazy. Speaking of neurodivergency, such a tickle. Like, it really scratches something in there. It's
Electronic music?
Kind of. It's like, it's not EDM, but I wouldn't call it anything other than electronic music. I don't really you should look it up.
Okay.
There's like a 3-song like mini release thing.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I'm really into song aesthetics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you've been bumping that.
Definitely.
Okay. Next question. Well, you're watching Euphoria. Any other TV shows you're watching?
Oh, yeah. What did I just start? Okay, my roommate and I have like a guilty pleasure routine where we'll choose like a kind of not great quality show and then just get like super invested in it.
Okay.
So right now we're watching You.
Have not heard of it.
It's like this like low-key bad acting show. I don't want to offend anyone who watches You very seriously, but it's like a crime kind of show.
Okay.
That is just like very I don't know. It feels pretty simplistic to watch. It's like a Gossip Girl kind of. It's our follow-up to Gossip Girl. We just finished the Gossip Girl
Trash
season.
drama.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun.
Okay. I'm going to end with neurodivergent questions.
Okay.
Small spoon or big spoon?
Small spoon. Easy. Easy.
Easy, okay. What foods do you really like in terms of feel or smell or whatever, and what just turns you off?
Okay, yeah, texture is like my number one thing. So meat texture, I hate. I can't eat really any dark meat. Chicken and fish is okay as long as it's like the white meat of the chicken. So like meat texture is a no for me. Textures I really like are things that are crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside. So like that can be anything from like a grape with a really nice crunch to like a muffin with a nice crunchy top, or like fried tofu, anything.
Ooh, fried tofu.
So good.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
What are your signs?
Ooh, okay, I'm a Scorpio sun, and then Libra moon and Scorpio rising.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, what are you?
I am a Capricorn moon. I'm a Gemini. No, I'm a Capricorn sun. I'm a Gemini moon, and I'm a Pisces rising.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that comes through.
I honestly don't know enough about.
Me neither.
Okay.
That's just that sounds like a neurodivergent question.
No, and I love it.
I'm also a Wiccan, so.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I have a star.
Oh, how pretty. Yeah, I was looking at that now because it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I got really into it last year. The whole story about I met a friend, we went to a yoga retreat, etc., etc.
Oh my god, I love.
Yeah, I got really into it. I have my own altar. Love it. Okay, final question.
Yes.
Your favorite flower?
Oh, that's such a good. Marigold.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Marigold. I don't think I know how it looks like. Oh.
It's like orange and yellow, and it's very sunny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about you?
Mine is definitely a type of rose because I'm generic.
Totally.
And also red is my favorite color.
Perfect.
Yeah. Leon rose.
Oh, very specific.
Yeah, I think it's Brazilian, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of into itself, crunched up. I feel like a cocoon all the time.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, that just needs to burst.
Yeah.
So I like those. Well, time is up.
Okay.
This was great.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Would you like to plug anything?
Yes, if you're a CHID student or interested in the CHID department, we have a new RSO that has just formed. Critique, Create, Transform is its title, but it's basically a way that you can get more involved in CHID. There are social events, student-faculty lunches, mentor groups, a whole ton of really fun things that are going to happen, and it's a really, really great way to get more involved with the department.
We sometimes have free food. Sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you, Tisbe.
Of course. Thank you, Lennon.
Hope the rest of your quarter goes well.
Thank you. You too.